The quarterbacks are in. This is as healthy as these teams are going to be. So who's got the advantage heading to Philly on Sunday afternoon?
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast to iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet. And the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's Friday Locked On Packers brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL, all lowercase, to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Jalen Hurts on track to play, practiced in full yesterday. Jordan Love practiced in full yesterday. We expect those guys to be ready to go Sunday. Great. We don't have to worry about that. We don't have to play the games, but both teams tried to play the game for as long as they possibly could. TJ Slayton returned to practice yesterday, limited. He told reporters after he is good to go. It seems like we're trending toward Evan Williams and Quay Walker also playing. And if you saw, A.J. Brown didn't practice yesterday, he is expected to play. That was a day of rest just to give him some rest so he could be fresh as possible on Sunday. Though, of course, these guys didn't play last week, so how much rest do they really need? I wanted to dig into the matchups today. And I know we did that a little bit with Louis DiBiase yesterday. Go back and listen to that if you missed our crossover. But I think I wanted to get even granular. I wrote a piece yesterday about this Eagles defense. I think there's just so much to talk about here. I was like, should we do an interview? Should we? But I feel like in these moments, what I personally want to talk about is the things that are going to determine the outcomes and dig into them. And not that we couldn't do that with a guest, but I just felt like this was the best way to handle this in this particular situation. So, for when the Packers have the ball, let's start there. This is truly strength on strength. About as strength on strength as you're going to get in a matchup. The Packers are the 4th overall offense by DVOA. The Eagles defense is first. This is the 3rd passing offense by DVOA. The defense for the Eagles, first. This is the 3rd rushing offense for the Packers by DVOA. The defense is second. So strength on strength. Now, when the Packers have played good defenses this year, varying results. 31 points against the Lions, but they started slowly. 29 points against the Vikings twice, but they started slowly. They started a little bit faster against Houston, but had some early turnovers. It's been a mixed bag. Now, I will say, the Eagles offense, and we'll get to the other side of the ball in the second segment, but the Packers have played 7 games against top 10 defenses by DVOA. This is not new to them. They have played plenty of good defenses this season, and this just happens to be a style of defense that the Packers are very familiar with. The quarters, the cover 6, the 2 high safeties, the middle field disguises, the man match. The Packers, I went back and watched that week 1 game, and look, Avonte Maddox versus Cooper DeJean. There's differences, to be sure, and that offense looked different then, and the Eagles defense looked different the whole first month than it has the last 2.5, 3 months. But at the same time, the Packers, I really liked the game plan offensively, and I think that's going to continue. What I wondered to Lou was, do you think they'll change some of their man coverage tendencies? And I asked a longtime defensive coach about this. And he said the same thing, basically, that Louis said. And that is, I think they're going to do what they do. They're probably going to play man coverage about 25% of the time. That's what they do anyway. They're a league average man coverage team. So to play man coverage at a league average rate would not be surprising. Now the Packers are going to have a plan for it because this is a very good man coverage defense with Quinyon Mitchell and Darius Slay and Cooper DeJean. But that's going to be third downs. That's going to be red zone. It's going to be specific. And if you're Matt LaFleur, you have to plan in any event that against almost any team in the red zone, you're going to get more man coverage than you might otherwise. And on third down, you're going to get more man coverage than otherwise. I don't think this is going to be some out of the ordinary game plan for Vic Fangio. Now, what's interesting, and this was actually what I brought up to the coach that I was talking to, was this Eagles defense loves to use simulated pressure. In fact, they are one of the highest simulated pressure users in the NFL, top 5 in simulated pressure. Simulated pressure is where you're showing a bunch, 6, 7 guys, make it look like they're going to come, make it look like they're going to bring pressure, and only 4 do. But guess what? It may only be 2 defensive linemen, and you may drop 2 out, or you may drop 1 out, and you may say, so you're going to only send 4, but it may not be the 4 you're looking for. And the point is to, and we talked about this with Joe Thomas a couple weeks ago, to test the rules of your opponent's pass protection schemes. What's interesting is they show pressure and don't bring it like all the time. They are bottom 10 in 5-man pressures and bottom 2 in 6-man pressures. They don't bring extra bodies. They show extra bodies, but they don't bring extra bodies. Now, their 4-man rush can be very good because Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith, these guys can win, Milton Williams can win one-on-one opportunities. And when you're showing 6, 7, and only bringing 4, the offensive line has got to sort it out. They may hesitate for a second, and all of a sudden that's enough for Jalen Carter to just be by you. And that's part of why this pass rush is able to do some of the things that they are able to do. Jordan Love, the numbers against the blitz are not great over the course of the season. The last 5-6 weeks, they've been much better. Do they amp up the blitz rate? It seems to me that if you're the best defense in the league, you shouldn't feel necessary to change anything. So I don't expect that they will. What the Packers are going to have to do in a game like this is start fast. And you say, but Peter, they have not done that this year, particularly in big games. That is true in big games, but on balance this year, the Packers are 9th in EPA per play in the first quarter. So maybe not the first drive, the first quarter. If you listen to our crossover, you heard Louis DiBiase mention that the Eagles are horrendous in the first quarter. That's true. They're even worse. The Packers are 9th. The Eagles are 24th in first quarter EPA per play. Now, in quarters 2 through 4, they're a top 10 team in EPA per play. So if you're going to start fast, it will be a bigger advantage for you against the Eagles than it may be against some other teams. You know, the Lions, they're no stranger to starting fast. The Vikings, they're no stranger to starting fast. The Eagles, they kind of are. They went down 9-0 to the Ravens. Now, they came back and won that game. Some fumbles, some weird things happened. But weird things happen in the playoffs. Now, the thing that I want to bring up here is we talk about some of the issues that Matt LaFleur has had with these teams starting slow in losses. But let's not also forget, we like to retrofit narratives based on what happened. So they lose a game and you go, well, they started slow. We forget that in the games they won, they started fast, right? They come out a bespoke game plan against the Seattle Seahawks in 2019. Tyler Ervin package, all the Devontae Adams double moves. Last year, same thing against the Dallas Cowboys. It's the play off the play. They came out like gangbusters. They come out. It's Aaron Jones running the ball. They get Romeo Doubs, double move here, double move there, shot play here, Jordan Love extending the play, creating something off platform, touchdown, interception, touchdown, and now they're rolling. The Packers in games that they've won, it's been these Matt LaFleur we've got something special for this game kind of game plans. And I think when you go back and you look at some of the failures of the Packers offense in the playoffs, it's been 2019. They're a 13-win team. Now, I know they know against the 49ers, they were just outmatched in that game. 2020, they're awesome offensively. They just didn't feel like they had to change anything that they did. They didn't have a bespoke game plan because they just thought they were one of the great offenses of this millennia. In 2021, Aaron Rodgers the MVP. We got to change against this team that we scored 30 on in the regular season. They did not have that sort of same approach. Last year, they had a plan for the 49ers, a good one. They had a plan for the Cowboys, a good one. In the game against Detroit in particular, I think they got a little lucky against Kansas City. Some just like S-tier plays made by Jordan Love and Christian Watson and like the lucky fourth down. Like there were some things that got a little weird in that. They came out and just blitzed. And I don't mean that from a defensive standpoint, the Lions in Detroit. They connected on all the shot plays that they tried to take. A lot of the stuff that they've been trying to do this year, it just all worked against Detroit. I expect them to have a specific game plan, unscouted looks, things that they've been saving because they're playing free and easy. They're playing with house money. They're the 7th seed. They're going to Philadelphia to try and upset. All the pressure is on Philly. We talked about that on our crossover. All the pressure is on Philly. Now, how does that manifest itself when Philly has the ball? This to me is the more interesting part of this. It really is. We'll talk about it next on Locked On Packers. This is a message from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Are you tired of the endless waiting, wondering, and worrying about your taxes? Well, now that's a thing of the past. You see, taxes don't need to be complicated or stressful. TurboTax is here to change the game. By matching you with a TurboTax expert, you can get to work on your return right away. No more waiting for answers. No more wondering if you're missing out on deductions. Whether you've got one form or 20, TurboTax experts give your taxes their undivided attention while you get real-time updates on their progress. So you can focus on what really matters. You won't have to lift a finger, but you'll get the peace of mind knowing that your taxes are being handled by the pros. Ready for stress-free taxes and your money back? Guaranteed the most money? Head over to TurboTax.com today and get matched with your expert who's ready to take your taxes off your plate so you can focus on your day. Only available with TurboTax Live full services. Real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Today's episode also brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. It's playoff time, and if you're like me, you want to make the most of these final weeks of football action. That's why Prize Picks is here to help. If you love football and want a chance to win real money while watching the games, Prize Picks is the place for you. It's the best way to turn your sports opinions into cash with daily fantasy player projections. With Prize Picks, you simply pick more or less on player stats like total passing yards or rushing touchdowns for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your money. You can make your picks in less than 60 seconds, and whether you're looking for a flex play to boost your payout or win quick, get that money, Prize Picks has you covered. And with over 10 million members and billions in winnings, it's clear that people are loving the platform. Here's a special offer for Locked On Packers listeners. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's Prize Picks. Run your game. Okay, so this is the side of the ball where if you just match personnel and you go, okay, let's look at the players the Eagles have. The all-pros, the Pro Bowl caliber players, the guys who've been in big games. And let's just match them against the Packers defense. And the way that they played this year in particular, you go, this is not even close. It's not even close. The Eagles are more talented. They're more explosive, more dynamic. But football is a team game. And this Eagles offense is less than the sum of its parts. They are 13th overall in offensive DVOA. They have played one of the easiest schedules in the league and one of the easiest defensive schedules in the league. They have not been tested on a regular basis. Now, they played the Ravens. They played the Ravens back when the Ravens were not defending the way that the Ravens are now. They played the Steelers, and they played really well against the Steelers. But the Steelers defense over the last month and a half has not looked like the defense that it looked in the first half when it was playing against the bad teams. Now it's playing against the good teams, and it doesn't quite look as good. So, okay, what do we really make of what this Eagles team is? And it's, oddly, for a team with Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown and a $50 million quarterback, it's the passing offense. It's the passing offense that is just not where we thought it would be. They are 14th. They're a slightly above average passing game. 14th. Packers passing defense, 9th. I don't expect them to play as much man coverage as we saw in week 1 when they had Jair Alexander. And that turned out to be a disaster to play man coverage. I think it would be a disaster now for different reasons. And I see people like, oh, look at what Detroit's doing. Look at what Tampa Bay's doing. By the way, Tampa Bay's defense is terrible. They're horrible. Why would you copy anything Tampa's doing? You just want to see them blitz more. You want to see them play more man coverage. I get it. Most teams, this Eagles team is the best defense in the league. They play mostly zone coverage. Minnesota, an elite defense. They play mostly zone coverage. The Texans, an elite defense. They play mostly zone coverage. Most teams play mostly zone coverage. I know most fans want their teams to play man and blitz a lot. That's just not going to be most teams. So this Packers defense, I expect them to play a lot of too high safeties, show too high, and very similar to what the Eagles want to do, they're going to try and trick you. They're going to show two high safeties. They're going to spin one of them down into a single high, and maybe it's not the one you're expecting it to be. Or maybe they show single high and they rotate into two high. They're going to show pressures, the simulated looks, very similar to Philadelphia. But they don't bring the pressure very often. They were able to pressure Jalen Hurts in the first game, but the pass rush has just not been there over the course of the season. And this Eagles offensive line is playing much better. So how do you offset that? Well, Jeff Hafley was asked about this, and he said that he kind of learned his lesson, he said, about not pressuring Jalen Hurts. Well, that's interesting. Learned his lesson. So are we going to see more of that? I think you're going to see two defenses that end up structurally looking pretty similar. A lot of middle field coverage disguises, a lot of zone coverage, and then a lot of simulated pressures where on third downs, you're actually going to see them bring more pressure than you have most of the season. Because I think if you're the Packers, you have to try and disrupt Jalen Hurts in the pocket. Now, the Packers were very effective at times in just baiting Jalen Hurts. Hey, Jalen, we dare you. We double dog dare, we triple dog dare you. Go play quarterback. Drop back, 5-step, 7-step, stay in the pocket. He had 11 carries for 33 yards in the game. Stay in the pocket and play quarterback. Maneuver, contain rush. You're going to have to find open guys. And even if it takes some time, can you do that? This is why you need Evan Williams. This is why you need Adrian Cooper. Run defense is very similar in terms of the other side of the ball. This is the 6th rushing offense by DVOA. You think 2,000 yards, you think Jalen Hurts. This has got to be the preeminent rushing game in the league. The Packers have a better rushing offense by DVOA than the Eagles. And this is the 7th ranked rush defense. So I understand. Look, believe me, I understand if you have PTSD from 2019 or from the Joe Barry experience. This defense is not that defense. And Big Daddy Slayton says he's going to play in this game. It's hard to overstate how important getting Quay Walker and Adrian Cooper are to this game because the RPO game is a huge part of this offense. And when it's Isaiah McDuffie and Eric Wilson, it looks different for your team than when it's Adrian Cooper and Quay Walker. And so there's just a getting off blocks part of this. This is a very big physical offensive line, but they don't move in space the same way. Similarly, in a lot of ways to the Minnesota Vikings, and we saw at Edgerrin Cooper, the speed that he brought and the way that he can chase was a huge factor in that run defense. He played 12 snaps in week 1. And so if you're the Eagles and you want to read that conflict defender, even pre-snap, okay, where's the linebacker lined up? If he's a little too close to our 3-by-1, we can just give that inside zone and let Saquon Barkley cook. And if he's a little too far inside, we can throw that little alert bubble screen on the RPO. The problem is with Edge Cooper out there instead of Isaiah McDuffie, he can get to that screen from an inside alignment. And from an outside alignment, he can get to inside zone. So that impact that he has can be the difference in the game. He was just named Defensive Rookie of the Month. He will not win it, but I think he's making a late push to be Defensive Rookie of the Year. Jared Verse is going to win it and deserves to win it. But Edgerrin Cooper has a chance to be the deciding factor in this game. I don't think that's going overboard to say. In fact, Dan Orlovsky mentioned it on NFL Live. If Edgerrin Cooper plays well in this game, I think the Packers win. And it's not that simple because I think there's other parts of the matchups that you have to account for. But he is going to be so critical because you can't throw deep on this team. Like they're not going to let you. So some of the things that they've learned from week 1 are, hey, some of that man coverage stuff, single high, like you got to get the guys on the ground. You can't open yourself up to those big plays. But so this was where I cashed out, and I didn't get a chance to tell Lou this. It's top 10 rushing defense, the best big play defense in the league. If they just play to that defensively, that's the way that this Eagles offense moves the ball. They run it, and they create explosives. So if you play to a top 10 run defense and you play to the best preventer of explosive plays in the NFL, what is the counter if you're Philadelphia? And one of the ways that the Packers were able to do it over the course of the season is with contained rushes, not letting scrambles beat them, those kinds of things. They don't have to change the plan in a huge way. Now they're going to need to get some turnovers. Most teams in the postseason need to win with a turnover or two. The margin is that close. But if the defense just does what the defense has been doing all year, they're going to put themselves in a good position to win this football game. How does it ultimately get decided? We'll talk about that to close out our week on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. Right now, the Packers 4.5-point underdogs. If you want to bet them on the money line, it's almost 2-1 plus 198 right now. I like that a tremendous amount. The first quarter spread is Packers plus 1.5. Okay. You got the Packers, a much better first quarter team than the Eagles. I kind of like that. Go to FanDuel.com to join today to get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this season unforgettable in the playoffs with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And thanks for making Locked On Packers your first listen. Now for your second listen, go check out Locked On NFL now with 2 shows every day. First, the madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso. Then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. Don't let Saquon Barkley break off the big run at the end. This has been a theme for the Eagles all year. And it happened in the week 1 game. The Packers did a very good job down to down, play to play on Saquon Barkley. And then they gave up the big run. This from our pal Zach Cruz over at Packers Wire. In the first half, Saquon Barkley averages 4.8 yards per carry. He's got 159 carries, 760 yards, and 5 touchdowns. In the second half, he averages 6.7 yards per carry, 186 carries, 1,245 yards, 8 touchdowns. The same thing played out in week 1. In week 1, in the first half, Saquon had 9 carries, 31 yards. That's really good work. That's really freaking good work. In the second half, 15 carries for 78 yards. Now, he popped a 30-yard or 2 in there, so that counts, right? Otherwise, 14 carries for 40 yards, that's not a great number. If you don't let him hit that big one, and you make them drive the length of the field every single time they try and score, they're going to be in that 21 to 24 to 26, 27 kind of range. They're not going to get to 34 points. The Packers let them get to 34 with explosives and turnovers. So don't give up the explosive plays. That is the defensive key. Make them drive the ball the length of the field every single drive. And then offensively, don't give them extra possessions. This team is a boa constrictor. You start out, you think you've got some room, you think you can get out of it, and then they just slowly tighten their grip. And at the end, you are gasping for air and you realize it's over. That's the Eagles. And so you can't give them a deep breath to constrict onto. Don't give them an extra opportunity. So if you're Jordan Love, yes, you want to create your explosives, but you have to take what they're going to give you. If they're going to sit in that 2 high shell and say the same thing, no explosives, then you got to take those RPOs when they're there. You got to hand the ball to Josh Jacobs when it's there. This team ran the ball exceedingly well in week 1. This Packers team ran the ball on Philly considerably better than Philly ran the ball on them. It was a harbinger of things to come for the improvements of this Packers run defense. When I look at this matchup, and you guys know I believe in DVOA. And I said this against the Vikings and it killed me because the Packers just didn't execute. But that's why I have to say it this way. If the Packers just are who they've been all year in terms of quality, in terms of you play to the things that you've been good at all year. Understanding the Packers in big games have not started fast, but over the course of the season have started fast enough. Their first quarter EPA is kind of like their full season, full game EPA. It's not that different in terms of rankings in the NFL. Offensively, you're going to run the ball effectively. They ran the ball effectively in week 1. You're going to create explosives. Do what you've been doing the last 6 weeks. Don't turn the ball over. That's who this team has been. Just be that team. You don't have to be anything more. And I loved Matt LaFleur brought this up. He was asked because Jaden Reed mentioned, the desire to hit that next level. And what Matt LaFleur told them was, don't feel like you have to do anything special. Just do your job. That message to me is perfect. Because if you're the Packers, you had a good plan in week 1 to attack this team. Just be who you are. And you'll be able to move the ball and get opportunities to score against Philly. It's a very good defense. I understand that this is a very good offense. The flip side of this is what we were just talking about. Just be the defense you've been all season. Be a top 10 run defense and be the best big play defense in the league. And you win 27-24. You win 28-27, 30-27. Just be who you've been. By DVOA, the Packers are ahead of the Philadelphia Eagles, in part because the Packers have been more battle-tested. They have been in more big games. Yes, the Eagles have won their big games, but the Packers have played playoff teams like Houston, like LA. 4 games against the Lions and the Vikings. No, I get it. They didn't win those games, But they had every chance to. One stop here, one ball bounces differently here, one call doesn't get made here, and we're talking about a different set of circumstances. And we're also talking about one boneheaded play on the last drive against the Bears from going to Tampa instead of going to Philly. And if they lose this game, we're definitely going to be talking about that because it mattered. Until it didn't, until the Commanders ended up winning, right? It felt like that at the moment. You're like, oh, okay, great, bait. No, the Commanders won. Didn't matter. But certainly a win difference. You beat Minnesota, you beat Detroit, those things, everything changes. So if this team, for the first time all season, and let's keep it a buck on that, it would be the first time all season that they play against a good team to their abilities, I think they'll win because I think the Packers' best is better than the best Eagles version. I believe that. But we have to see the Packers play their best. We saw them do it against Dallas. That was the best version of the Packers we've seen in a long time. For any team. And the Packers have shown, Matt LaFleur, Jordan Love, they can jump on teams. You jump on this team, you get this team out of game script, you go up 14-3, 10-0. You go up 21-10. Now they've got to throw it, and that's not where they want to live. So I think it was so indicative to me when I looked at the numbers, and since week 10, Jalen Hurts had 0 big-time throws and 2 turnover-worthy plays. 0 big-time throws. Talk about a caretaker of an offense. So the best thing you can do is build that early. Be the team you've been all year, and you'll win. We are going to keep being the team that we have been all year here on Locked On Packers. We'll be live after the game on YouTube. So go subscribe to us over on YouTube. Make sure you're hooked up, set up, ready to go. Follow me on all the social medias and subscribe to us on all the platforms. No, just on the ones you listen to. If you listen on iTunes, go leave a review. Leave a rating, 5 stars. That'd be great. Thank you so much. Tell a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Packers. Now's a great time of year to tell a friend about Locked On Packers. So not just you, but they and everyone can stay Locked On Packers.